Cody, thank you as always, man. I just appreciate the partnership that we've had over the last. I always kind of don't you kind of sometimes forget like what was that first time that we really started working together? But I mean, I know now. I mean, it's been 4 years,
Think so. It's getting close. Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
close to 4 years. But just to see, what you've done for the industry between the impact that the conferences have had, the impact that Kaboom leads are having. Like I keep seeing all the testimonies about people going out there and just killing it on that. But then here's one thing that I don't think many people understand, but the connections that you have made. Like if you could override all the connections that you've made in this industry over the last 6 or 7 years. But well, I mean, I know you are and you will continue like as it continues to grow. But just appreciate you being someone who says, "Hey, we're trying to get solid information out to agents in this industry so that we can shift this whole 8%, 92% thing." So
Yes.
more people have that opportunity to get into this industry and make it work for them long term. And what
Yeah.
we're diving into, I've been doing this build it bulletproof. I kind of launched this and had this idea at the last 8%. I think it was the 8% virtual conference, like in was that January, February of this year.
So
Um, and I was talking about that idea of build it bulletproof. I carried that into the 8% conference there in Springfield this summer. We've had a couple of these webinars already where we've talked with my finance manager, we've talked with my COO. Today, we're talking about business analytics. And I know analytics is something that you look at all the time. I saw a recent post that you did where you were talking with your sales team about
mhm.
here's the numbers for the week. What, you're at 12,000. We got someone at 20,000. Like we started at five and here's where we are. And like the only way you can make moves like that is if you actually care about it. And the word analytics, I think people are like, what are you talking about exactly when you say analytics?
Mhm.
But the more agents, whether you're new in this industry or like I know experienced agents who do not track like they just kind of go, you know. But the
Yeah.
best agents, the agents that I see making improvements all the time, are the ones who they not only understand their numbers, they're tracking them, they're analyzing them, and they're seeing improvement year after year after year. And then it allows for the scalability. So would love for you just to hopefully help people as they're jumping into this call, as they go back to look at it here in the future.
Yeah.
How have you seen that not only being important for you and the multiple enterprises that you have, but I mean, you talk with insurance agents, life, health, property and casualty across the industry, across this entire country. What have you seen that's been kind of that differentiator between people who understand and know what business analytics, what the words actually mean, and those who are just kind of like, let's see what happens this month?
Yeah, it's a good question too. Also, dude, I appreciate you a ton, the relationship. I'm telling you guys, for those that are maybe new to Edward Pritchett, incredible dude. I've learned so much. Super grateful to be able to spend time with him and his entire organization. I can tell you too, like if you think about build it bulletproof, right? Like you guys are joining because you're like, I'm guessing you believe that your business is not bulletproof yet, and you believe it can get better. If you believe that to be true, type a B in chat for bulletproof, right? Because I can tell you that along the way, I have felt like my business was not bulletproof. I've had several occurrences, by the way, over the last several years where I realized and I figured out that my business was far from bulletproof, right? And it's getting better and I'm learning. More time I spend with people like Edward Pritchett, the more I learn and the better it gets. But I can tell you what, like if you think about Shark Tank, if you guys went on the show Shark Tank, what's some of the first questions they would be asking you? The first questions they'll be asking you will be related to math, numbers, analytics, right? Business analytics. And if you think
Mhm.
about that, right? Um, we did a show, Agency Investors. It's been a year and a half ago, right? I think it launched earlier this year, pretty much, about a year ago now. And I saw Edward Pritchett asking those type of questions and wanting to dive in and understand someone's business. And so if you think about that and you're like, I would like to understand my business better. I would like to track things better and build it more bulletproof, I can tell you what, this dude that you're going to be listening to tonight has several companies that are very large, do extremely well. And guess what? One of the biggest reasons why is because he understands his numbers. It allows you to make decisions and moves much better when you actually know what is happening. And so I am excited for you, the listener that is watching right now, saying, I want my business to be different in 2025. This webinar cannot come at a better time. So I'm excited for you guys to hear from our guest. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and just kind of intro and host for a few minutes and say hello. You guys are amazing. And I promise you, get your notepads ready because you are in for an unbelievable topic and training tonight.
Oh, thank you, sir. And I mean, that's the whole goal of the entire series. There's so many people, and you see them, we talk about the 8% a lot, Cody. And while we're talking about the 8%, we're thinking about the 92%, right? We're thinking about like what's that differentiator that kept someone from going from, they had this idea, I'm going to be big in the insurance industry to, well, McDonald's is good enough for me. I'll just dunk the fries a little bit more, right? I'm kidding. Not that McDonald's is a bad place to work, right? But if you came in with the dream that you're going to make it in this industry, what is it that takes you out? And I think, we talk a lot about leads, right? I didn't have the right leads and stuff, and you're working on things to help change that. And there are things that people can do for that. Mentorship is one that we hear a lot about. But I think one of the ones that we don't talk about, but is probably at the highest as far as what gets people out of this business is just understanding business,
Mm,
right? Because most people are used to, like most people who come into this industry, especially those of you who are independent, you're 1099, you're coming into this business and all you've known is being a W-2 employee, right? You've had a process that's been in place and that's what you followed and done. And then you get to where you're the person who's supposed to create the process and you have no clue what to do, right? And one of the things that I have found is like I need to work with people, and that's the people that help grow my organizations, the businesses that I say I run, but like I just happen to be the person with the name and the owner's title for right now. But the people who are helping to run it are people who understand and know how to run different processes,
yeah.
right? And when it comes to analytics and being able to really dig in, it was one of those things that I was able to do. I have a background in engineering, right? I have a couple chops when it comes to like putting some stuff into a spreadsheet and seeing how it's going to work. But someone who's really seen businesses from the sales force to the manufacturing and the production, like really being able to break down why is this system working, why isn't this one not? Where's the inefficiency? Where's the waste? Where can we improve? Right? Sometimes it's not how can I actually get better? How can I stop doing what's stealing from me? Right? Not how to kind of make this process better. Maybe I'm just doing something that's taking from what I could be getting. And so it was, one of those things about was 2.5 years ago.
Years ago.
2.5 years ago, myself and someone else who's been on one of these podcasts, my CEO, Walker Strickland, we were like, we need someone for this role that can really analyze like how many numbers are there in the insurance industry. Like Grace is laughing because like she when she came in, we kind of thought about it, and she was like, yeah, we can break all this stuff down, and like every time we get one set of numbers under control, it's like, oh wait, we could be analyzing this. There's so much, and so it was amazing to be able to bring in somebody into our organization like Grayson Duffield, who has had that experience, and I'll let her explain a little bit more about her background and her experience. Maybe you're not at the point where you're ready to hire someone full time to come in and help you do this.
Mm.
However, I never would have been able to have Grayson come in and help me had I not had something to at least be like she kind of laughed a little bit when she saw my tracking at first, right? So she giggled a little bit. We got to joke about it, but at least I had something to start with, right? And that's what we're hoping that you walk away with today is that you have a place to start with how can I start tracking the numbers that are important for my business? What are some concepts that I can be thinking about? And I probably like this is just the start. You're going to have to come back for this is This is even 101. This is like that
High level strategy.
yeah, this is that like the exploration course. Like, do you really want to do this course?
Mm.
Um, and then from here, like that's our goal, my goal at least with Build It Bulletproof is to continue to put this out in a series format so that not just today, but people in the future can come back and learn how they can really be good at the business of being an insurance agent. And that's where I've partnered with you, and I appreciate you, Cody, is this ideal of like we can make it better than 8%. We can get
Amen.
to 9, we can get to 10, we can make it so that even of those 8%, it can be even better, right? And the more value that we're adding to this industry, the more value ultimately gets added to the clients that we serve. And that's where that karmic effect, that universal principle, that if we're sowing the right stuff, it's gonna come back and it comes back in spades. So Cody, appreciate you.
Thank you.
We'll jump right into it. I
Let's do
know
it.
you got plenty of stuff to be getting ready for that Miami event tomorrow. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be seeing and talking with each other real soon.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you. Tear it up. Also excited to hear from Grace tonight as well. Super awesome. Thank you, Edward. Thank you, Grace. Thank you both.
All right, Cody. All right, so we'll go just jump right in. We'll come back to this view probably towards the end. And here's what I would say: we do have someone watching the chat. As we're going through this, we may not answer every question during the presentation, but as we're going through this, if you have a question or something that you're wanting to get answered, drop that question in the chat. We'll try to at the end go through and answer as many of those as possible. And then if we're not able to answer directly in the chat, we'll look to try to get back with you via email. We're going to have, I think we're going to have to put an updated link here towards the end, but we have a special offer at the end. We'll put that in the chat as well. A lot of the spreadsheets that we're working from, what we're going to be talking about here today, we're going to make sure that we have a link so that you can get a copy of that spreadsheet, and Grayson will actually be explaining, what we're looking to do in that particular spreadsheet, how it works, so that you may not use exactly that, but you have a place to start. Again, this whole thing here this evening is to give you a place to start, because if you've never done any type of analysis, like that's what analytics is, like analysis of factual data, right? We're looking at the numbers and we're seeing what the numbers are telling us and how can I use that to improve what I'm doing. If you've never done that before, start small. All right. You don't need to start with the 10,000 line spreadsheet that you're never actually going to do. Like where are the first places that I can start? And when it starts becoming a habit and you can build upon that, that's where you're going to start seeing the most results from actually doing this practice on a regular basis. So let's go over to our PowerPoint here, Grayson. We'll share this and we'll jump right in to our conversation.
All right, looking forward to it.
Let's see.
All right, there we go.
We're live. The technology is working for right now. So let's just keep going while it's working. All right. So ideal here, build it bulletproof. Okay. And so what we mean by like there are going to be things that assail your business no matter what. All right. There is no like, oh, I'm just going to start a business and nothing bad is ever going to happen. Like there are bullets that are going to come flying at your business. And the way that we look at how we build our business is how can I just make it bulletproof, right? Not make the bullets disappear. The bullets exist. So how do I make myself where I'm bulletproof? So starting off with when it comes to analytics, if you don't have the numbers, right? If you don't know what your numbers are, you don't really know what you're doing. There are a lot of people in sales that they just go out and they just try to make it happen, Grayson. They just throw something at it. Let's see what happens. And then if you see a little bit of money in your checking account, you feel like you've made it. But that can keep you going maybe for a season. But you've worked with companies that are multi-billion, multinational companies. You've seen sales forces and helped guide sales forces that, I mean, again, billions of dollars a year that are being generated through their sales, through the activities, even going down to like, we got to create something to make something, get like 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 units out that then go out all across the world. And if one thing goes wrong, like that can have a huge compounding effect, right?
It can.
So knowing where those numbers are so you can pinpoint issues, that's been something that's been a practice of yours throughout the majority of your career. So just give our audience here just a little a taste of the repertoire of Grayson and what you have done in the past for others, and then talk a little bit about just walking into the insurance industry and seeing how we treat, the independent insurance agents, whether it's on the life, the property casualty, the health side, and how we kind of look at uh, uh, numbers compared to these major corporations that you've worked for in the past.
Yeah, so I'll take you back to when I was starting my career in IT. I've been in IT for, 20 something years now, but I walked into the doors at Dell in Round Rock, and somebody said, you're going to be working on our CRM and our advertising platforms and our forecasting platforms. And I was, well, what does that mean? And the first day they sat me down and they put up a spreadsheet, and you could see the sales and you could see how many, after somebody made a sale, when did they make their next sale? And that was my introduction to just how data driven the culture was at Dell. Everything was designed around measuring the results, identifying what was working, what wasn't working, and then making small incremental improvements. And some of these improvements were so small you wouldn't even think they would make a difference. But I'll give you an example. Somebody in manufacturing decided we were using too much tape on the shipping packages, figured out exactly how much shipping tape you're supposed to use. It saved $1 million a year. So little things like that you don't even think. So again, I really came to love this culture of measuring what's happening, and anything that is measured can be improved. In fact, I wear a Fitbit now because I want to measure my physical activity. And you know what? When you measure it, it changes and usually improves.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, again, Dell, like if you don't know who Dell is, Michael Dell, Dell Computers, go look it up. Like, I mean, this day and age is just another name, right?
It's just another name.
I mean, Dell decided to start a computer company, not like right at the same time that CompuServe and IBM and Apple was getting started. Like he was a couple of decades later, right?
Yeah.
But he figured out how to get low cost, high quality computers into so many American homes. And that's why he's a billionaire today, right? Like it was that, you said, that culture of data. Like knowing your numbers. When you know your numbers, you know what you can correct. You know what you can change. You know where things, you don't even have to, and I love what we're going to talk about here in just a second. You don't have to become a Six Sigma, and if that means nothing to you. You don't have to become Six Sigma certified, but you do have to understand the principles. Because if you can understand the principles of that, you're going to start seeing the things change, the improvements, like you're saying with the Fitbit, right? You don't have to say, I'm going to start working out better and I'm going to start walking more. Just wear a Fitbit.
Just put this on.
Just put it on and just start looking at your numbers. You're like, wait, I've been sitting here for how long? Let me get up and move around some. So let's talk a little bit about that and walk them through this process. And again, this is a concept that I want everyone just to understand. You have to just understand the principles. If you start doing, and I know you'll talk about this later, but just the first three, everything else kind of flows from there. But walk them through, like, what's this as they're thinking about, okay, I'm a insurance agent. I need to sell policies and get premium to go to insurance carriers and make a commission. All right, what should I be tracking, Grayson, in order to improve on that, to get better at that?
Well, that's the beauty of a Six Sigma process. So a Six Sigma process is it is an overall framework for business improvement, and it can be applied to anything. It can be applied to your back office operations, to your sales, to your recruiting. It is a process that is repeatable, and the results of this the reason Six Sigma is in existence is to create a repeatable process of business improvement that stabilizes your business. It can stabilize your operations, stabilize your income, and reduce variability so that you can predict your future, your future success based on what you see now. So the 5 principles of Six Sigma start with defining what questions and what areas you want to focus on. So for an insurance agent, maybe this month you really want to focus on your a certain type of sales call, or you might want to focus on maybe your recruiting processes. But basically, you define what you want to focus on. Then you decide, how am I going to measure it? How am I going to understand what I'm currently doing? And then once you've measured it and you look at that data, analyzing it comes into play just automatically. We are storytellers, we are analyzers.
And let me talk about that word analyze. People think that I have to do I have to have some formulas for analyzing things? What is this? Look at it.
Look at it.
Look at your numbers. Your brain will automatically analyze,
We are storytellers. And when we look at something, we can, it's the human nature is to say, now, oh, I see this. Oh, wait, I think I understand. And you form a story around it. And that's really all that analysis is.
Yeah.
Is looking at a situation and coming up with a understanding of why it happened.
Yeah. And another way you can look at it is pattern recognition, right? Like I look at it and like, there's a pattern going here. When I call during this time, and we'll talk about this, when I call during this time, nobody answers. When I call during this time, people answer. Maybe I should just call when people answer, right? Yeah. But if you've never tracked those numbers, right? Like, we are good storytellers, and that works for us and against us. It works for us whenever I have the numbers in front of me. When I don't have the numbers and I'm just thinking, okay, what happened when I was calling all of last week to all those leads that I got? Or I worked this type of lead, and that type of lead, and I was calling, how many appointments did I book? I think I booked 8. Okay, and where did they come from? Well, I think maybe half of them came from this lead, and I think a third came from this, and then another half came from that. Wait, those numbers don't add up, right? Like, if I don't have the numbers in front of me, then I do start telling myself stories.
And they may not always be right.
And they're usually not right. let's be honest. Like, as salespeople, we're good at selling ourselves on our BS as well, right? Like, if I'm gonna try to if I talk to my kids, like, the person that you lie to the most is usually yourself, right? Like, you can always tell yourself, well, it was because of this, that, but the numbers, they don't lie, right? When I have the numbers written down, when I've defined what am I trying to improve, okay, I know that I want to improve the quality of my appointments, all right? So what do I need to measure in order to improve that? And that's where working with a mentor who hopefully has done that before can help you do that. And then, now that I know what I need to measure, start writing that down, then I get to just look at it and I'm able to analyze and see what can happen. And then the other parts of those processes, the improvement and the control aspect of it, that just starts to, just like with wearing the Fitbit, like, that just starts to happen.
It becomes part of your standard operating procedures. Yeah. So the topics we're going to cover. So we're really going to focus on gathering data and then making decisions, right? So when we think about gathering data, you want to gather the data perhaps that's around, how am I spending my time, or how you're spending your money. So it's gathering that sort of data, that kind of tracking data.
And this is what, so when you're wanting to write down, okay, they're wanting to say, how I can start doing this, we're giving you, like, maybe you don't have a mentor that's helping point you to what you should measure. Think of it, just those 2 categories. How can you measure how you're spending your time, and how are you making your income, right? Can you put some data points, some things you can measure on just those 2 topics? Don't worry about anything else for right now. Like, if you've never done this before, how are you spending your time? How do I measure that? Calendar. That's a quick tip there. Calendar. How am I spending my time? And then, how am I making my money? So where can I source back? Like, if I got a commission, where did it come from? And how can I do that more often? So gathering your data, and then the next one being.
And then you make the decisions. And I think we've already said, sometimes the best decisions are, how do you reduce your inefficiencies? How do you stop doing something? Not always. Sometimes it is how you start doing something, but a lot of times it's how you stop. And then it's, what do you continue? and you want to be able to say, did your time generate income, right? So those are the kind of decisions that you make.
Yeah.
And the outcome of this webinar is you will understand the basics of analytics to both drive efficiency and generate revenue. Okay, so we'll talk about operational analytics. Okay, yep. So we have kind of
I skipped one there. We got to start with the operations.
right. So we talk about operational analytics, and these types of analytics that are the ones that look at how you're spending your time mostly. So it's tracking your, what time of day you did an activity, how long you spent, and then that sort of thing. And these analytics, they can be created and maintained just for a limited period of time. So maybe you just want to look this week. I just want to track how is this script working, or how many hours am I spending doing a certain type of activity. And you can track it. It doesn't have to be forever. You can just say to yourself, I'm going to do it this week. I'm going to do it really well. And then I'm going to look at it.
Yeah. And this is one of those where when people think about operational analytics, that are you saying I have to track what I'm doing all the time, every week, every month? The end goal of having tracked this is to be able to redefine your schedule, right? So that you now are working in the most efficient way that you know of today. And then maybe it's like, what would you say, Grayson? Like maybe once a quarter, twice a year, I'm going back and saying, hey, let me do an audit of my time and see, like, am I still using my time as efficiently as I want to be using my time?
Exactly. Because there is time involved in tracking this stuff, right? And that is a time sink. So obsessively tracking anything is not worth it.
Yeah.
You need to define what your question is and track what you need to track to answer that question. But aimlessly just gathering data, it can create more problems than it solves.
Yeah.
So
and that's not our goal here, is to be like, well, Edward and Grayson were saying that we should be tracking everything all the time. Okay, we're telling you now, no. Okay. The ideal here is I'm going to track it long enough, and maybe it's a week. Maybe like, what do I actually do for the course of a week? And then now I can sit down and do my analysis, and I look at them like, I just looked at my calendar and I realized I say I work 8 hours a day, but I'm only actually working 4. All right. I found an inefficiency. What am I going to do about it?
Exactly.
Right? How am I going to improve on that? Or maybe I am working 8 hours, but I spent 6 hours shuffling paper, for lack of a better word, right? Like I wasn't doing anything that was income producing. So on the operational side, it's just knowing that, okay, I'm looking at this for this particular period, and then I'm going to analyze it and make a change, make a decision. I'm going to start doing something different until I start to have that feel that, something's off. I could maybe be doing something better. And then I can have those periods of time where I can go in and, remeasure, right?
Right.
Like I'm going to go measure, make a change, go for a little bit more time, say, okay, now I need to remeasure. And that's how we get that consistent improvement over the course of time. And I know we were talking about this in the sense of, well, I think I just stopped the share. But I know we were talking about this both in the sense of the sales side, but then anything that we do on the sales side of this business, we can do on the recruiting side, the building side, right? All right.
No. And then, so we've talked about operational analytics, which is a lot about how you spend your time. Revenue generation analytics, it's all about trying to find that sweet spot between what you're spending and what you get back. And we call that return on investment, understanding where you spend your money for the most impact. I see we've got some.
Oh no, you're
Okay.
good. Yeah, no, we're checking the chat while we're doing this. We're making sure that if you guys do have any questions, feel free, again, throw that into the chat.
So this type of analytic where you're spending your money, we do advise you keep pretty close eye on that, right? I mean, this is something you're going to want to make the effort to track on a more regular basis. And as you get going, perhaps you'll start using, some tracking software, some accounting software, something eventually, CRMs, whatever, that can help you do this and can automate some of this tracking. But yeah, those are the two areas where we think where it's worth focusing, at least as you're getting started.
Yeah. So again, how am I spending my time? How am I generating my revenue? Right. And as you're thinking about this, is kind of that intro to, okay, I want to start tracking to improve my business. Time, we all get it. I don't know anybody, if you're working for any captive organization, IMO, FMO, everyone talks about like you're going to live or die by your schedule. And that is true. But then you've got to spend some time checking that schedule, measuring, like, am I actually living by the schedule? Am I spending time in efficient ways? Am I having too much waste, or is there a place where I'm having a waste of that time? Because we don't get that back, right? Spend your time, it's gone. And then on the revenue side, I really encourage you to just know, like, what is my ROI, especially for those of you who are using leads, right? Like if you're out doing all warm market, there's still an ROI on warm market. We've done some numbers on that, like generating your own leads or warm market ROI. But like if I'm spending money and I'm not making money, there's only a certain amount of time you can do that before you don't have any money, right? Like that's what drives people out of business, is because the cost just doesn't exceed, or the cost exceeds the revenue. And if you don't try, it's funny how quickly that can sneak up on you, right? Like when the guy in the shipping department there at Dell, when he was kind of looking at it, they probably weren't, too tight on their budget. But when he found $1 million in
Waste.
6 inches of tape, right? Like, what does that do to profitability over the long term? Like that's what turns, a middle-sized computer company, though a whole bunch of things like that turns a middle-sized computer company into a $1 billion-a-year enterprise, right?
And there's knock-on effects, right? So for the tape, how figuring out the exact amount to use was important, but it also meant that they didn't have to wait for resupply. And there's an actual time it takes to do the tape. We don't value our time enough. I mean, there's a recent study I was reading that said, your average professional person, no matter what they're doing, their time is worth a minimum of $40 an hour. And if you start thinking to yourself, well, I just spent 4 hours doing something, well, it's $160. That can add up. It's not, nothing is free. And so we need to track all these things. So yeah, so tracking is key to improvement, right? So we're looking at this, and this is an example of one of the pages from the spreadsheet that we will share with you, and it has just an example tracking page in there. And this tracking includes the date, the month end, which is it's an automatic generated field there. We also look at the day of the week, and then the time of the day, the morning, afternoon, evening. Those are all important things when you're trying to plan your schedule for a week, or to see what the results are based on the time of day. We also have the lead source in here, and then the hours that you've spent, because again, your hours are important, and the number of calls you might have made, the number of connects, and the number of sales. So this is the type of basics tracking that we want to enable people to be able to do just using the spreadsheet we created.
And one of the things I just wanted to, I brought up the little red dot here so that you can kind of follow along. Again, if you sign up, we'll put the link to sign up for just our basic newsletter. That way you can get a copy of this spreadsheet, and it's something for you to play around with. Like, we're not saying like this is your end all spreadsheet, but it's something that you can start off with. But the ideal here was, like, we had agents making calls on certain lead types, and we're trying to figure out, like, which one should they be spending more time on. And not only that, but what time of day is the best time. There are certain times of the day, like, I don't know for you, but like when I'm calling certain lead types, there are times of the day that make more sense for me to dial, and I'm getting more positive results in that particular time. And if I could focus my calls during those times of the day, and then spend times where I'm not getting, like you can see here, 2 hours of dial time, here's how many calls, here's how many contacts, right? Here's how many sales that came from the calls and the lead type during that time. And it allows me to, just by looking at this, I can start honing in on what's the times that I definitely want to make sure that I'm calling, and which times Might I do something different? Might be a better, I could use that time, I could leverage that time in a different way because I'm not getting the results that I'm wanting to get.
Right. And we'll take this, I think we'll move on to the next slide at this point. I'll let
There we go.
Edward has the magic finger. So this is another example. So in the spreadsheet, we have some built-in pivot tables, and a pivot table is a way to organize and aggregate the data so that you can see it, see the totals and the output based on the different characteristics of the data.
And that's why we're sending a copy, right? Like if you just heard the word pivot table and you just kind of like blanked out for a second and went back to like, 10th grade biology or something like that. Again, having someone who can help you. Like I did not know what a pivot table was before Grayson started working here. I used spreadsheets. I had no clue. I'd heard the term, but I didn't know what it was. But again, like it's being able to leverage the information. This is, the intro course. We'll have future ones. But to start learning about these things so that it will help make it more efficient for you to track, right? And so being able to aggregate, like pull all the information together and be able to really see what's the best time, what's the best lead source, like you can start pulling this stuff out whenever you're able to use the great things that are inside of the tools like Microsoft Excel, right? Yeah. But go ahead. I just want like I felt a couple of people just like they heard pivot table, like what? Where
you
am
could
I?
just feel it, yeah. So yeah, so this is just an example. So in this case, the different lead sources are listed there, and you can see the different the days of the week and the times of the day. And when you look at those and you look at the aggregates, you might be able to say, hey, wait, I spent a lot of time on Monday and look, nothing. Maybe I won't put so much time on that, but oh my gosh, Tuesdays were much better. So this is dummy data, right? This is not our actual data. So it will vary depending on the individual and maybe, geography. But basically the point is when you aggregate the results of what you've measured and you look at it, then you can begin to analyze and just say, oh, wait, this is the best time of day to do this particular activity.
Yeah. And the key here is you have to, number one, track, right? And this is why you have to think about like, what are the things that you're going to measure, right? Some people like, I'm raising my hand. I was one of them. It's just like, how many dials for the week? How many contacts? How many appointments? All right, that tells you some general data for the whole week, but it's hard for me to pick out like which day was my best day for dialing. Which lead, if I'm working different lead sources, which lead source was the one that was performing better for me, right?
Exactly.
And so these are the things that it doesn't have to take, you don't have to spend, again, a lot of time doing this, but it's like, do you have 15 to 20 minutes in your schedule where you're saying, let me, one, make sure I'm tracking. Like I'm tracking as I'm doing certain things, but then when can I go back and kind of take a look and say, what's the analysis of this? I know Brendan Bouchard, High Performance Habits, if you haven't followed him or read any of his stuff, pick it up, okay? He always talks about in his business coaching, which I've gone through multiple times, Sundays being the day where he looks back on what happened over the course of the week and he analyzes what happened so he can prepare for the upcoming week. Right? It doesn't have to be, if you're a business owner, it's not going to be during your business hours that you're doing this. This is how the best business owners, the most successful business owners get to that next place. They have that time outside of their normal business hours where they're looking at the data, but they have the data. So working with someone, maybe even starting with the spreadsheet that we'll share, but working with someone to figure out like, what am I going to track? And then having that time where I can sit down. And again, you don't have to have some fancy equation to figure this out. You just have to look at it.
Yeah.
And your brain will start to come up with the story and the pattern recognition will happen.
Yeah. And the spreadsheet also has a very simple ROI calculation. Again, when you're buying leads, when you're buying leads from different sources, being able to calculate which leads had the best return on investment, that's also included in the spreadsheet. So that's another thing people will see. So yes, but the concept though, to take away from this is to define the area you want to work on. You can't work on everything at once. So define the area you're going to focus on first and the question you're going to ask. Then figure out how you're going to measure it and measure it for a consistent period of time. That may be tracking activity, maybe tracking costs, and then look at those results. And with a few simple tools, you can do some analysis and come up with a way to improve your business over time. And that's the path. It's a this is a repeatable time honored way of implementing business improvement.
Most definitely. I know, and I'm looking to our great marketing team here behind the scenes. We may be updating this QR code or put another link in the chat here in just a second. We've had to make some updates and changes, so don't take a picture of this QR code, okay? But we'll put a link in the chat here in just a second. But here's the thing: I did want to hit on this. This is not done. All right. I know we have a good show. There's a good number of people on this call here this evening, this webinar this evening. But guys, like, these are the kind of things that when I look back on my 16, getting ready to be 17 years in the insurance industry, what the Pritchett Agency has done over the last 14 years. Next year will be our 15th year in business, which, I mean, like, it's kind of cool. Like, I'm not that old yet. I'm only 41 and like have a business that's been around for 15 years. Just getting to the 5-year mark is like a big deal in small business ownership. We've tripled that. So, but it has always been like, I've always had mentors point me to, you can't improve what you don't track.
Right.
You can't change what you don't measure. And analytics, even if you just have to start on, we've tried to give it to you on as basic and simple a level as we can, primarily just so again, you understand the concept of like, if I can go in and define what I want to change, right? Okay, I'm a brand new agent, and what I want to improve on is I want to get better at sales. All right, how do I measure getting better at sales? This is where you need to talk with a mentor. What did you use to measure? Okay, was it your activity? Was it the leads that you worked? Was it the number of conversions from a discovery call to an appointment to a sale, right? Was it times a day? Where are those things that I can measure? And once you have a basic guideline, you don't have to track everything, but just being able to start with that basic guideline of, this is what I'm going to measure. And now I've measured it for a specific period of time, whether that's might be a week, it might be a month of tracking, and just sit down, have that time in your schedule. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to take a look at the numbers. I'm going to take a look and see, does the story that's on paper here match the story I keep telling myself in my head? Because sometimes those two stories are different. And that can be a big part of how business analytics can help you, is because if I can just get the story that the numbers are showing me to actually match the story that I'm hearing in my head, like, that's going to give me that drive where I don't quit like 92% of agents quit. Right? A lot of people quit too soon because they just didn't, it felt worse than it actually was.
Yeah.
Like, if I look down and like, okay, I made 300 dials, I had 50 contacts, and I booked 10 appointments. Like, when I do the actual numbers, I'm like, percentage-wise, like, I'm doing good, right? Maybe I don't have the close ratio, but hey, I'm getting in front of people, right? And being able to actually have those numbers in front of you, where you can sit down and look and see, what's the pattern? What's the story? Is there something that I can improve on? You get frustrated, you get tired of this business because you don't know what to change, you don't know what to improve. And by just having this ideal of business analytics in your mind and kind of going through just the first 3 steps of Six Sigma: define, measure,
Analyze.
and analyze. Like, and again, analyze, you don't really have to do anything other than look at what you measured. But the 2 hardest parts that I think most people do not do is that initial, let me get with a mentor, get with someone to help me define how to get what I'm wanting to get. All right, the result that you're looking for. If it's more money in the bank, okay, that's great. What is it gonna take to get there? Right? Really define what it is that we need to improve so that you can get that result. Start to measure it, because we have a clear definition of what we're going to measure, and then take the time to actually take a look at it. This is where you start. The spreadsheet that we're going to share, it has a lot more than many of you even need to worry about, but I'd rather you have more than less. right? But get with someone. You can always reach out. If you're working with the Pritchett Agency, this is what we cover. This is what not this isn't recruiting day right now, but like we want you to find someone, right? And whether that's continue to follow us in this series, we're trying to do these Build It Bulletproof webinars once every quarter or so. Give us a little wiggle room once every quarter or so. But the goal is that we get all of these and we have them in one place where people can come and access. I want to see each of you. I want to see you grow your business, because if you make your business better and make this industry better because of that, you make it more attractive for all of us. All right. It's one of the reasons, like even with the things that we've been working on here at the Pritchett Agency, I'm obviously very excited here at the end of the year that we were able to launch the tax-free living book. And the ideal behind that was we started looking at the numbers of here's how many people are writing infinite banking, cash value, life insurance policies, and here's how many are set up very, very wrong. Right? Here's how many clients really understand what's going on whenever we have that conversation with them. And so we were able to take a lot of the information that they were looking for and needing, put it into that package of, 5x8 book or whatever. I don't know what the size of it is, but 160 pages, right? And now we're able to consistently educate clients first and foremost about how they can grow their income, get their finances in a better place using the products that we sell on the life insurance side. And agents are able to learn how they can do it as well, right? And that all came from really being able to take a look at what do the numbers tell us about the clients that we're seeing for this particular marketing type. So like you can, as you start doing more of this, you should start seeing so many different types. I know, Grayson, as we're wrapping this up, you look at things like, looking at our clients and like business that's potentially getting ready to fall off the books and tracking where that is and which agents and which agencies are not doing well with that, sending out a report where we don't have to say anything, right?
Yep.
We just send the numbers and look, oh, I need to call my clients a little bit more because this business is falling off the books and it's going to mean I'm going to make less revenue. We track things like most of us have insurance carriers that offer incentive trips, right? But how many of you, and maybe hopefully this won't be too many of you. I hope too many of you won't put it, but put a 1 in the chat if you were ever surprised by an insurance carrier that you were close to qualifying for a trip, or maybe you missed a trip by just a little bit. Just a little bit. Put a 1 in the chat. I just want to see if there's anybody else, because I know I can raise my hand. Like I've been there where like I could have made a trip, but I just didn't even know that I was close. Okay, I guess. Oh wait, I have to. Okay, there's a couple of y'all. I didn't see all the numbers coming in. It moved too fast. But like that's a number you can track so that you can measure, you can improve. Like if you know end of the year's coming up. And if the contest for Mutual of Omaha or Transamerica or whatever carrier, if it's coming up at the end of the year and I know where my numbers are, I have that tracked in a systematic way, then okay, I can actually maybe do a little extra push and get on that trip. That's just 3 things. And we could go down a list of the different things that you've helped us track and you continue to create systems to do that. And that's the other really cool thing about the technology, and one of the things that we'll hopefully be able to get into in future versions of this particular webinar is that with technology, both from Excel spreadsheets, the pivot functions of those, CRM systems, I hate to mention ChatGPT, but I kind of have to because it does a lot if you know how to use it. But like there's so many things that we can do to automate a lot of the tracking of the things that affect our business, so that you send over like, hey, Edward, take a look at this spreadsheet. Like when it comes to our recruiting, and what source so these people come, like all I have to do is just look at the data. I'm like, that tells me something. Let's stop doing this and start doing that.
Exactly.
Right. And then we can see next month, did that improve or decrease, or keep everything just the same?
We should continue.
And if it improved, let's keep doing it. If it decreased it, hey, let's go back to what it was before and see if that changed. And that you start making these little incremental steps. And that's how Dell goes from, a $10 million a year business to a $5 billion, $6 billion a year business. one day, but that's how we're going to be able to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Is by being able to track like this and make those incremental changes as the numbers tell us that next story. As we wrap up, anything that you want to share with them is how they can kind of get started with this journey on tracking their business analytics to help them not only stay in this business, but thrive in the insurance industry.
Well, Edward, I just want to say thanks for letting me have the opportunity to share this with the group. I really feel passionate about being able to track and to understand a business better. And my one advice would be just pick that point that has been, perhaps there's something a question you've had in the back of your mind, something that's been, wiggling its way through your conscience, trying just pick the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just make that first question, define your first question, and just start there. And once you start and once you see improvement, it will feed on itself. Business process improvement, when it becomes your culture, that's the way you start looking at everything. So
I like it. Start with number one, the first one. So I appreciate Mr. Cody Askins joining us here at the beginning to help us kick it off. It's partnerships like that just really allow for our industry to just continue to improve and get better. If you're not following 8% Nation, highly recommend take a look at what he's doing. Continue to follow us here, the Pritchett Agency. We get all this out on our YouTube channel, Life Insurance Today. So, go there, click subscribe. You can also, I'm trying to get the notes coming to me right now, but also take a look. We have on both Instagram, and as long as we still have TikTok, I don't know if it's still going to be here in January. We'll see. If it's still here in January, follow us on TikTok. We'll get a lot of this out in those shorts. But definitely make sure I'm not sure we have Pritchett Agency hosts. Have we put the link for subscribing? Okay, so we'll put the link in there in the chat right now to subscribe to our newsletter. That's what I mean. It's curated information for anyone in this industry that I just try to share on a very regular basis. Things like the spreadsheet that we've been using, that we have our agents start to use. Again, there's no cost to this, guys. Like we want you to have it, because if it improves your business, as I said, like it will improve my business, because we need better insurance agents. I don't care what FMO, IMO, captive agency that you're in, we need better agents out there, because that's going to serve our clients better. That's going to make all of our, we're all polishing, our reputation by helping out in that way. So hopefully you'll pass this forward by sharing this with people in your organization. Share what the Pritchett Agency has available for agents of all types, life insurance, health, PNC. These same principles can be applied across the board. So with that, definitely want to wish you a Merry upcoming Christmas. If you're watching this before Christmas, if it's after Christmas, I hope this upcoming Christmas in 2025 is merry as well. But definitely hope you have a happy new year. And here at the Pritchett Agency, Life Insurance Today, I am Edward Pritchett. We all want to say Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you, and look forward to more content like this coming out in 2025. Have a good evening.